Okay, we'd like to welcome all of you to our Planning Commission meeting this evening. This is Planning Commission meeting for June 22nd, 2021, and thank you for being here with us. This meeting is being recorded, and we're going to begin our meeting this evening with an opening prayer from Commissioner Callis, and then we'll have a Pledge of Allegiance from Commissioner Marchbanks.
Our Father in heaven, we bow our heads before Thee as we commence this Planning Commission meeting this evening for the City of Lindon, and we're thankful for the opportunity we have to gather today and to take care of this business and considerations for the planning for our beautiful city. We're thankful for the community we live in, for those who work for the city and do such a good job in managing it. We pray that as we discuss these things tonight, we will be calm and collective and make good decisions for all those concerned and best interests for the residents of our community. We're thankful that we can come closer and closer to returning to full normalness with the pandemic we've had this past year and a half. And we're thankful for all that Thou does for us, and we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. You all rise for the... I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Renee. Okay, we'll begin our meeting this evening with a audible roll call of the commissioners. Sharon Call, here. Mike Marchbanks.
Here.
Jared Showers.
Here.
Rob Callis.
Here.
Stephen Johnson.
Here.
And Scott Thompson, he hasn't arrived yet. And then Renee Tribe.
Here.
Okay. And we're going to begin with our review of our minutes from June 8th, 2021. We've had a chance, commissioners have had a chance to review those. Do any of the rest of you have any corrections or changes?
There's just two motions to close public hearings that are listed as open public hearings.
Okay, I've already given that to Kathy because I noticed that too.
That's the only thing I noticed.
Yeah. In talking with Mike on page 7 and 8, and that would be on line 14 and line 7 on page 8. Just because it was easier for me to understand, and maybe for some of the rest of you, the motion where it says the Lindon City General Plan map, it said from commercial and research development to commercial. We took out commercial and, so it says from research and development to commercial. Okay, and then also on page 8, and this would be on line 7, where it says, and research and business, R&B to regional commercial. And then in parentheses, it had MC, which is mixed commercial, so we did change that to RC for regional commercial. So Kathy's already aware of those changes, but I just thought I'd make you aware of those also, just so it's clear. Okay. Item number 3 on our agenda. This is a time. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So
I
moved.
move that we approve the minutes with the noted changes.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, item number 3 on the agenda. This is a time for public comment. This would be for items that are not already on the agenda for this evening. Is there anyone here for that purpose? Okay. Item number 4, this is a, let me get to that point. This is a conditional use permit, a vehicle repair business with Willis Diesel. And our applicant is Trevin Willis with Willis Diesel, and our presenting staff is Anders Bake. So is Trevin here, if you'd like to come up? And we'll let Anders Bake go ahead and present this item on the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioners. So this application is for a conditional use permit to operate an auto repair business in our light industrial zone. Our land use table requires that a auto repair business receive a conditional use permit for any property in the light industrial zone. So the business, Willis Diesel, will be operating at 1279 West, 300 South. There's a building there with several units, and they'll be using one of those units. The business will perform all their work indoors and within their unit. And the property meets the requirements for an auto repair business in this zone and the conditional use permit requirements. The building was recently completed just this last year and meets all the development requirements for building in that zone. There will be 6 parking stalls available for the business for customers, and the applicant has stated that there will be normally 2 employees working at the property, so for available for customers. But the applicant has also said that most customers will just be coming to drop off their vehicles and leaving, so there shouldn't be huge parking demand. Based on the information the applicants provided, staff feel that this business will be able to meet the requirements for a conditional use permit. They've required a description and site plan, and then a liquid waste management plan that we ask for these type of businesses. Those are included in the report as well. So I'll go over the motion for this item. So the proposed motion is to approve, deny, or continue the applicant's request for a conditional use permit to use the property located at 1279 West, 300 South, Suite 5 for an auto repair business with the following conditions. 1, vehicles may not be stored outdoors for longer than 72 hours unless the owner is waiting on delivery of parts. 2, no automobile parts will be stored outside of the building. 3, the applicant will comply with all of the light industrial special provisions requirements found in section 1749090 of the Lindon City Code, and for all items of the staff report. So does the commission have any questions for me or the applicant?
It seems pretty straightforward to me. Anyone
Yep.
else?
I'm aware of the property and the location. It's absolutely an appropriate use.
Rob or Jared, do you have any comments or questions?
I do not.
Okay.
See, is there a lot out back or something that you will be storing your vehicles while they're waiting to park?
On the ones waiting for parts, there is additional parking out in the lot behind.
And the lot's in the rear?
Yeah.
Is it a fenced area?
It is on 2 sides, but not the,
2 sides are fenced, and then across the back is the Heritage Trail.
If no one has any questions and feel fine about it, do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I move to approve the applicant's request for a conditional use permit to use the property located at 1279 West, 300 South, Suite 5 for an auto repair business with conditions 1 through 4 in the staff report.
I second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. So good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yes. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a public hearing, and so I do need a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, and this is item number 5. It's an ordinance amendment. Impact signs on behalf of Holiday Oil, Title 18.03.030, gasoline price signs. And our applicant is Impact Signs. I don't know who's representing. Is there anyone representing Impact Signs here?
Yes, they're on the
Oh,
Zoom meeting,
okay.
both
Okay.
Kevin and Scott.
Okay. And our presenting staff is Michael Florence.
Great. Thank you, Commissioners. Impact Signs and Holiday Oil have made an application to amend our city sign ordinance to allow for digital price signs. As you're aware, they're constructing a Holiday Oil station there on the corner of Geneva Road and 700 North. They're requesting that these digital price signs be allowed under our ordinance. You can see one rendering here, and then the second rendering as well. So currently, the city does not allow electronic message center signs of any type. What we've done is created a specific type of electronic sign. So this would be a gasoline price sign. So it'd only be specific to gasoline stations or convenience stores. So it's basically, we have defined that as, let me get to the right section, as a sign which is used to advertise the price of gasoline at gasoline service stations. We say under the changeable copy section of the ordinance, electronic changeable. So currently they're allowed, I need to take back what I said earlier. We currently do allow electronic signs, but only along the freeway. It's called our transportation zone. And so this says changeable electronic signs and mechanically changeable signs are only permitted in the T-zone along I-15 corridor. Then we're adding or as a gasoline price sign. See specific electronic changeable copy sign regulations for gasoline price signs under the gasoline price sign type. And so a little wordy there, but that was the way we needed to make sure we made the correct reference. So these would be allowed as a monument type sign only. The electronic portion is included in the square footage of the monument sign. They're allowed to have electronic or manual changeable copy. The electronic changeable copy shall change only to update gasoline prices, so you're not getting other messages on there. Electronic changeable copy shall not scroll, flash, fade in and out, show video, or transition through multiple fuel prices. Electronic changeable copy sign area for each individual price shall not exceed 6 square feet. So if we go back to the signs here, so that's what that would be the numerical area there, couldn't exceed 6 square feet, and that's what these signs are. This one's actually the tallest, and it's at 6 square feet, so it's 1.6 by I think 3.8, something like that. The other items in the ordinance, gasoline price signs shall be located along arterial or collector streets only. As identified on the Lindon City Street Master Plan map, a business is only allowed one gasoline price sign along an arterial or collector street unless located on a corner where each abutting street is an arterial or collector street. So this, so for example, for the Holiday Oil, where Geneva Road and 700 North are both collector streets, they could have a monument sign on each street. And then last, such signs shall be installed with automatic dimmers to adjust the brightness of the electronic changeable copy throughout the day and night. As I asked for more information on this from Impact Signs, they say these have automatic dimmers. They have they called it an automatic eye that changed the brightness of the sign throughout the day and the evening. So these would only be allowed for gasoline service stations. I showed in the staff report other locations. We've got 2 other convenience stores in Lindon City, the one on State Street and 700 North. They've got 2 monument signs, one on Geneva and one on one on 700 North, one on State Street. This is their newest sign they just put up. The other one got ran over by a car. And then this is the one on State Street, and they have a non-conforming pole sign. So this one, the one on 700 North in Geneva, I keep saying that wrong. The one on State Street and 700 North, they could convert these to the digital changeable copy in the future if they wanted to. The one on State Street could only change the one on State. They'd have to change this pole sign to monument signs if they wanted to make those changes. So with that, myself or the representatives from Impact Signs and Holiday Oil would be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, questions from commissioners?
My only question is, we kind of looked at this a while ago at maybe making this more broad. I'm totally fine with this application, but is it time to look at, I mean, there's a nice electronic sign at the new restaurant app here that's portable. I don't know whether but that sure helps me know what's going on there. So that's my only question, is it time maybe after this to start looking at the sign ordinance to allow more electronic copy in the city?
Well, I know we've looked at it, like in front of the community center too, to
Right.
be able to say, hey, there's upcoming events coming, and things like that. It's a good point. I think we could look at that.
As far as this ordinance tonight, though, let's
Yeah.
go ahead with that.
I don't see anything wrong with it. I think it's straightforward and
We could definitely have that discussion with the council and see if that's something they'd be willing to entertain, and if so, I can draft something.
yeah, that's my only suggestion with that is maybe it's time to look at allowing some of these things with restrictions or whatever in the other parts of the city.
Well-
But I think these, because that one up at 7-Eleven, the one side I don't think has changed in a year and a half. I mean, the gas prices have gone up and down, and it's $3.57 or whatever it is. On the one side, if you go around the other side, they change it, but I don't know if they can or can't, because those
They
are difficult
lost
to
all
change.
their letters and numbers, that's probably what happened.
So I agree that this is something that's probably better for everybody.
Well, the reason I like it is because you have really carved it out and made it very specific with the restrictions on it. Everything from the type of sign it can be to even the dimming that has to happen, during different times of the day, and that it can't exceed the 6 square feet, and you can only have one sign in this place, but unless you're on a corner, and then you can have collector or the arterial. So that's the reason I don't have any problems with it, is because it's very tight, I feel like.
I guess one question with what Sharon said, the 6 square feet seems to be very specific to what they want to do. Is that standard? I mean, if you looked at what,
It's kind of,
that's my only other question. Do we need to make it more, or is this bigger than, so if this 7-Eleven there on, you know, that we showed there with their sign that got,
Mike
That's-
was showing me some other just from Holiday Oil, and that isn't, I mean, that isn't just their standard, that's ours.
Th-
So,
Yeah, it's kind of all over the place. You know, I've seen some this same size. There's others that are a lot bigger. It's whatever kind of the city puts the restriction. So,
even in a monument sign, is there some that are much bigger?
yes, I believe, and Kevin or Scott, you could correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the new store in Lehigh has a lot bigger letters. I drove by that going to something last week or 2 weeks ago, and I noticed it was quite a bit bigger. We can see if it's on Google Earth yet.
Scott, I could try to answer that. I could try to get to an email here and look at some drawings, but I think you're right. I think we've got bigger numbers at the new store there in Lehigh, or in Lindon.
Yeah, that Lehigh one definitely, along 2100 North, I think what you're referring to, and, yeah, it's much bigger, numbers on that street, so. The side street on Thanksgiving Way is probably more similar to what was shown here.
So, but I'm assuming, I'm trying to think how that will look. I mean, I'm guessing they're big enough to be read easily and everything at 6 feet for the speed of the cars on those roads.
Yeah, I think we're fine with, on a monument to be that size. If it was, or a pylon sign, you'd want some bigger numbers.
What if a gallon of gas goes to $10 plus? You got an extra digit on there per gallon.
I'm okay with this sign as long as they don't exceed the prices shown on that sign there.
Nice job.
Exactly.
That looks like a deal now.
Yeah.
This, unless there's other comments from the commission right now, this is a public hearing. So if there's public that would like to make comments tonight, is there anyone that has anything they'd like to let us know about or inform us? Okay, are there any, then if there isn't anything from the public, let's close the public hearing and bring it back up to the commission for discussion.
I move to close the public hearing.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous.
Commissioner
Okay.
Call, this is the Holiday Oil there in Pleasant Grove. You can see their sign.
That's- Yeah. Okay. I like what we're doing. I feel like it will benefit the company as probably as well as the public, but it isn't too obtrusive. Okay, anyone else?
I think it's completely reasonable.
The only other thing I've seen at other gas stations, and I'm assuming this doesn't allow this, is on their site plan, you know, there's channel letters on the canopy. Sometimes people have the prices up there. I'm assuming that's not being allowed in this ordinance?
Yeah,
To be-
yeah, this one's only allowing it on monument signs.
And is that, I don't think I've ever seen that at a Holiday Oil where they put it up on the canopy, so that's probably not your method.
We've got one or two that are on canopies, but that's because of roads being widened and, so on most sites, it's all monument or in the landscape area.
Yeah, Holiday has two locations that we have gas canopies. We have price changers on the gas canopies, and the only reason that they're on those two locations is because UDOT took away, widened the road and took away landscaping, and they lost a monument sign, so they were allowed to put them on the canopies, but that's the only time we've done it.
The only reason they put on the canopy was because UDOT took the easement on, that's what he was saying.
And just as a reminder, you're making a recommendation to the city council. They'll make the
Right.
final decision, so.
Yeah.
Okay, well, are we ready for a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, and like Mike said, this is just a recommendation.
Right. I might just say, I think this is a good thing. I know there is an aversion to electronic message centers and flashing lights and changing things, but to me, this just improves and makes it look more professional. And, I mean, to me, a paper sign with $2.99 on it doesn't look nearly as nice as this. So I don't think we should be as scared of this. I think we're probably a little too restrictive in the size and everything, but we can address that later. So with that, I move to recommend to the City Council approval of Ordinance Amendment 2021-9-0 as presented.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, the next item on our agenda, get to that. Passed all this long sign ordinance thing.
That's a lot.
Okay, this is that, just a second. Yeah, I am. Okay. Okay, this is item number 6 and 7. This is a site plan and a conditional use permit approval for Per Pickle. And it's at 195 North State Street. And our applicant is Per Pickle LLC. Is that you, sir? Yes. Okay, would you like to come up?
Sure.
And what is your name?
My name is Mark Eddy.
Okay,
You need my address as well?
I don't believe so.
Record, or you're good? Okay.
Okay. And our presenting staff is Anders Bake.
Yes.
Okay, and we'll let Anders go ahead with that presentation, and then we'll ask you questions also.
Sounds good.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, yeah, so this project, they're applying for 2 different applications. One is a site plan approval for the development of the project, and then the conditional use permit approval is to operate their business on the property once the building is constructed. So the application is for a private pickleball courts indoor. So there will be a building on the property. It's 1-story building, a little over 9,000 square feet, that will have 4 pickleball courts available to private club members. The building also has a small hallway area and bathrooms. So first of all, to go over the conditional use permit, our land use table doesn't specifically say private pickleball courts, but it does have some uses that are similar. Those include private tennis courts, let's see, gymnasiums and athletic clubs, and then recreation centers, and all those are listed as conditional uses in the general commercial zone. And so as staff, we determined that would make the most sense for this to be considered a conditional use in the general commercial zone, and require the conditional use permit. All of the other requirements for a conditional use permit also will go along with the site plan requirements, so those will be discussed in other portions of this report. So there isn't really anything else unique to the conditional use permit application. But we have a separate motion for that item. I made a mistake on the staff report that was sent out, so it has 2 site plan motions if you're looking at it on your screens, but the one we have up on the screen has the separate conditional use permit motion, so we'll go over that when we get there.
And that one is first, is that right?
That one is the first one listed.
So, but it's actually the second one.
It's the
on
second
here.
one on your
Right.
on the report that was emailed to you. Yeah, so sorry, apologize for that confusion. So going on to the site development standards, I'll go to their proposed site plan here. For parking, they're proposing a total of 15 parking stalls will be available for the business. 7 of them are on-site proposed stalls. And then there are 8 that are off-site, that are these 8 that are along the property boundary just to the west of the property. Before the applicant was involved with this project, when that property to the west was developed, the easement was recorded that gave those 8 parking stalls to this property. And so that's already in place, and so the property already will have access to those 8 parking stalls, as well as vehicle access to this property through that property to the west. So the property will be accessed from 200 north through that other property, through their parking lot. So the parking code for this type of use, for a cultural amusement and recreation use, only requires 15 stalls, but we've worked with the applicant to try to determine a more appropriate parking amount, and we've come to 15 stalls that should be more appropriate for the use and the size of the building. And so, you know, as I said, with traffic circulation, that the property would be accessed off of 200 north, and that those easements and agreements have already been put in place. For landscaping, the commercial landscaping requirements require a 20-foot landscaping strip along public street frontages, which is provided, and that landscaping strip has to have 70% vegetation, which is also provided, and trees every 30 feet, and then a total of 20% of the lot in landscaped open space, which is also being met. The one requirement is that the landscaping strip, if it has a meandering sidewalk that goes in that strip, then that sidewalk cannot be counted as part of that 20 feet of landscaping, so there would need to be additional landscaping. A portion of the property does have parking that encroaches into that landscaping. That's kind of shown on this image here. So about 5 feet wide. There's about 5 foot wide sidewalk, and so an additional 5 feet that would need to be in landscaping. That's proposed to be part of their parking stalls. Something to note is that the sidewalk is actually already in place. It was put in place when the property to the west was developed, and the kind of the landscaping and sidewalk kind of go along with the development to the west, and kind of just make kind of a more cohesive, I guess, sidewalk there. So the Planning Commission can approve of a change to that landscaping and can approve of this layout as it's shown. The city code is referenced above here. It states that upon approval of the planning commission at the site plan, so it has to be reviewed. It can be approved by the planning commission at the site plan review stage of the application. And then it says no net loss of landscaping should occur with any approved alterations. Other landscaping layouts consistent with the Lindon general commercial design standards may also be considered by the planning commission. And there isn't a loss in overall landscaping, so that is being met. And there's additional landscaping specifically just to the east here, that's kind of in a way sort of replacing that landscaping that's not there in that blue area. So all the other landscaping requirements are being met for the site. It's meeting the minimum lot size requirements and building setbacks. And then for the building itself, go through some of those requirements. So the building materials consist of mostly a block type material, block and cement board with metal along the windows, and that's all considered a primary building material in our commercial design standards, and it exceeds those requirements. And then it also has a flat roof, which would also need planning commission approval. And I'll go to the rendering to kind of show more details on that. So this rendering shows some different angles of the building. One requirement in the commercial design standards is that 60% of the front facade at the pedestrian level be like glass or windows, so this area is, I guess this image kind of is maybe a little bit misleading, where basically the left portion is set back from the right portion. So it's kind of up for interpretation, but if you consider just the right portion, the front facade, and then kind of this portion, that pedestrian level of the front facade, they are just about 100 square feet short of meeting that fenestration requirement. And so I'll let the planning commission work with the applicant and kind of interpreting that, but that's something to look at. And so that would need to be reviewed by the planning commission. As far as the building material and the commercial design standards, we've discussed those in the report, and everything else seems to be met. And the plans are still in the review process by our planning and engineering departments, but any other minor engineering issues will be approved by the engineering department. And so overall, there's just a few, the landscaping and then that fenestration requirement are kind of the things to be looking at. But overall, the applicant has provided the information that we need at this point, and we believe that it should be an amenity to the city. So again, with the motions, there's two separate motions, one for the conditional use permit. I move to approve, deny, or continue the applicant's request for a conditional use permit to use the property located at 195 North State Street for an athletic club business with the following conditions. One, if the parking that is provided becomes insufficient for the use of the property, the applicant will secure an agreement to provide additional off-site parking for the subject property. 2 hours of operation will be limited to 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. And 3, the applicant will comply with all the commercial zoning requirements found in section 17.48 of the Lindon City Code, and 4, all items of the staff report. And again, so that's the second one listed on your report, and then the first on the screen. And then the site plan motion to approve, deny, or continue the applicant's request for site plan approval with the following conditions. 1, the applicant will provide 60% fenestration on the primary facade of the building at the pedestrian level. 2, the applicant will continue to work with the city engineer to make all final corrections to the engineering documents. 3, the plans will meet development specifications as found in the Lindon City Development Manual. 4, final design will meet the commercial design standards for commercial sites and buildings. And 5, the applicant will comply with all bonding requirements if applicable. And 6, all items of the staff report. So with that, the applicant is here in attendance, and if the Planning Commission has any questions for me or the applicant.
Do you have anything additional you'd like to add to that?
Yeah. Anders, could we go to the rendering? I live just up the road from this, up the hill to the east, and I'm excited actually to have that corner piece finally developed, to be honest, as we all drive by there multiple times a day, and believe that this will look nice, honestly, for a pickleball court, for an athletic club. We've tried to spend some money on the exteriors to make sure that it fits what Lindon is to all of us, and what we hope to preserve it to be. I would also just mention that the idea with this is that there are 4 courts, and there's no room for spectators. It sits on the site pretty tightly. In fact, we really don't actually have a foot one way or the other by the time you get it all square on there. And the reason I mention that is because it's really for use of 4 people per court, 16 people at any given time. And the way that we keep that traffic jam from occurring at the turn of every hour is we offset the hours. So you can start 2 courts on the half hour and 2 courts on the hour. And so if you think of bathroom use, or if you think of parking turnover, it sort of occurs on that half hour rotation with respect to 8 of the players. Glad that we were able to find the easement that had secured the 8 off-site parking stalls, and as mentioned, that has been recorded. That's not at issue. But would highlight, as Anders mentioned, that in the report it indicated that the calculation that would typically apply to this kind of a use would require 5 parking stalls, and we're able to deliver 15. So even though there are 16 participants at any given time, believe that some will come in the same car. With pickleball, people playing either in the same family or in the same neighborhood and sort of going together. That at least has been the experience that we've had in looking at this investment with some outdoor courts. So we're confident that we'll have the parking. We're confident that the turnover, that the rate at which it's used will allow for an efficient use of the court. Also, as a resident of Lindon, have heard the rumblings about pickleball and where to play, and of course it's sort of a big thing right now, and hopefully for a long time since we're building a building, but believe that this will be a great amenity, honestly. As far as just if you want to understand a little bit, this might not be super relevant, but a little bit about the business model. People will pay their membership. They'll determine how many hours they want to play in a given month, and then they'll have a scheduling system to allow those hours. We won't oversubscribe the hours, and so you'll never sell more memberships than our hours allow, but people will be able to, in advance, to set their schedule and play when they want to play. So that's the private component of this, just to control the use, of course. Access will be by fob, and so the building will be controlled by fob, and your fob will only be activated in the hour in which you've reserved the building, and so that's the way that access will be restricted and controlled. So it's sort of a standalone private club that somewhat operates itself as far as use is concerned. Could we also just go quickly to the site plan?
Can I just interrupt?
Yeah,
you,
go
Mark,
ahead,
just a
Steve.
second?
Yeah.
I just have a question here on, so it's private use,
Yeah.
right? No employees is what it said.
Correct.
But obviously, people will be coming and going, using the bathrooms, using the showers. How is that maintenance? If there's no employees, what's the maintenance gonna be on?
Yeah, so we'll have cleaning every day, but what we meant was that there's no one going to be there at the lobby when you come in to check you in or out. That's all technology.
That there
It's
is
like,
a crew or whatever that will
yeah.
come every night?
Right.
It's self-serve pickleball.
But maintenance
There will be a maintenance
every
crew.
night, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Good
No,
question.
and no other amenities in there, like a drinking fountain or?
We have a bottle filler type drinking fountain. We have lockers
Yeah.
that people can put their stuff in. We have the bathroom / showers, which are private, of course. Every bathroom has its own bathroom and shower, and you can lock the door and use that if people choose to do that. And there'll probably be a vending machine or something in the corner if someone wants a Gatorade or something. But that's really, it's somewhat bare bones that way. You can see how tight the site is with the trail easement sort of to the north of us, and then the 20-foot setback along State Street. And then if you come to 200 and look down at that parking lot, the reason we're asking for your permission on that 5-foot variance is if you squeeze those stalls and move them to the south, then the drive aisle that's there and the other stalls from a backing and turning access, we start losing some of the on-site parking. And believe that by making up that landscaping in other areas, as you can see, there are large sections of landscaping surrounding the building, that we're probably better served by maintaining the on-site parking and making up the landscaping elsewhere than we are sort of taking out the meandering path from the overall calculation, still remaining 20 some odd feet off of 200 from a visual aspect, but trying to keep some of that on-site parking. So that was, with a tight site, that was the rationale behind the request to get some permission to waive that requirement.
So there's no spectator room?
There isn't. And
What if a mother brings a 8-year-old child?
yeah, so everybody that enters would be one of the 4 on the court, at the time, if that makes sense. So it's really designed to only allow access to
The players.
on that court at that time.
The mom's going to have to be a player.
Yes.
The 8-year-old is not,
No, but what about the kid?
Well, that's what
Her
I mean.
babysitter.
She's going to be having
Yeah.
a player on the court.
That's the concept. And it's for a couple of reasons, right? One, we really wanted to fit a 4th court on there. And if we looked at spectator room, we were going to have to eliminate one of those. And then also, by the time we got on-site parking on there and tried to triangulate or position the building, it just wasn't going to work.
My
Yeah.
example, does the child have to wait in the car?
Well, we're hoping that they'll leave the child at home, frankly.
They'll make arrangements.
Right.
you have a lobby, right? You have a little small entrance.
We do have an entrance, and it's not pure bathrooms. The bathrooms are sort of on each end, and there is an actual entrance where
Yeah.
you have a little bit of a foyer there, but
I mean, it's a membership, so there's a little bit of exclusivity, and so you don't bring your children. People are going to pay extra for that time to play pickleball.
yeah,
With,
that's the hope.
yeah.
And,
Do you-
and we think it translates. We
Do you
think,
see yourselves having tournaments there?
no, we
don't see
know
how
that
that would
some of the other indoor facilities do.
Yeah.
And so I guess it could happen within the members of the facility, but logistically,
Because you'd be challenged if you did it, if
Yeah.
you expanded it beyond your membership.
right,
You'd have parking and,
parking issues and
yeah.
other things. And this is really designed for just the people that play 3 times a week, and
Having fun with
it's
it.
really not more.
now they can play year-round. Right, I see.
Yeah, yeah.
Makes sense.
You set up one of the courts where if you had a tournament, again, you have a parking issue, first of all, but you had a tournament, you could bring some bleachers and put it on one of the court and just sort of have two courts going on for
Sure.
that tournament.
Yeah,
I mean,
certainly could.
I would
And
think that would, I would think there's money to be made in this by
Yeah.
hosting tournaments, I guess is.
I think
what I
so.
think you might be
and-
missing out on.
And if we do a Saturday tournament, which is when you would typically do that, then you don't have the parking being used by the doctor's office except for the Instacare there. And we did have conversations with them regarding renting some of those stalls from them on an as-needed basis, and have already come to terms of what that might look like. But haven't done anything formally because we're just not sure, honestly, in the business model if we're going to want to do that or if we're going to sort of want to just keep it to ourselves, meaning that from a membership standpoint.
Why are the hours, did we, as a city, put those hours up?
I think
I
so.
was gonna ask the
I
same
would
thing.
love
I
to
thought
have-
that's a
I
little
played basketball
restrictive.
till midnight.
I would
Yes.
love to have it extend to midnight,
Right.
but that is, I believe that is something that was put in by staff.
But-
We're not restricting
But
the
especially where it's
reception
located,
centers,
it's,
That was just going off of the business description.
I don't know why you couldn't do it 24/7. I mean, Noah's when it was open, I don't know if it's still open or not.
no,
You know, the
But
big
yes,
gray building,
right.
you could go in there 24/7.
That's
and
right.
Play.
Yeah, we would love 24/7. I doubt we would sell, meaning include hours from midnight to 5 a.m. in the overall calculation, but if someone wanted to get up at 4 and play, and then if they have the fob and they can access the building, then we would be okay with that.
I don't know why you couldn't do 24/7 personally.
Yeah, I would, in fact, if.
I agree with that. I
with
don't
it-
know why we need to put a constraint
Are
on
the
that.
Gold's gyms and everything open 24/7?
Okay,
It came from the applicant's letter.
okay.
Oh.
It's in your staff report. So that's.
I read that.
So
It's
if you
true.
want different hours, you're more than welcome to agree on something. If you want to eliminate them, that's.
Can I amend my letter then?
Yeah, you can,
We did describe peak hours. And I'm sorry, we said
you said peak hours.
peak hours are 5 a.m. to 9, sort of before work, and then
And then-
6 to 10 after. But I didn't mean to constrain ourselves to
Okay.
those hours.
Yeah.
Maybe let the market decide what that might look like.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
I would love to have 24-hour access if everybody would be
Still got to
agreeable
have
with that.
time to clean the facility
Sure.
and those kind of things.
Yeah.
to, Keep
Yeah.
that standard.
Yep,
Yeah.
That could be
Well, I have a couple of questions.
please.
As far as the landscaping, I'm not concerned about that as far as encroaching into that parking area, because from our staff report, it does say that you've got additional landscaping to the east of the parking lot, and that would offset that shortage.
Yeah.
And so I'm okay with that, especially where the sidewalk was already in place, okay? But as far as the 60% fenestration or glass in windows,
Yes.
you are a little bit short on that, and we have been requiring people to meet the ordinance on that.
Yeah.
And 100 square feet probably wouldn't be that hard to come into compliance
I
with.
agree.
So I know our staff report
Yeah.
indicates that, if we want to make that a condition, then they could go ahead and make sure that that happens rather than you having to come back to this body.
Which would be great. Could we scroll up just a little bit from that? If you look at the rendering in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see the 3D view of this. And so we're looking at the entry, right? But there's also glass to the side. And so you pull into the lot, you're facing that front door. And I know that glass to the side is not counted because it's not on the elevation that we're looking at. But there is some sort of generous glass around. So it was our desire to allow a lot of natural light into the courts.
Right.
So that we're not dealing with overhead lighting that way. And I'm fortunate to have our architect with us who agreed to come, Jonathan Cland, and would be happy to have him address perhaps the issue of fenestration if he has anything to add.
Well,
to
yeah,
that.
and that's terrific. What you've done is great, but we do
Yeah.
have to meet that ordinance.
Sure.
No, and that's fine. If you would like us to, we certainly can. What we've done with the entry is we've maxed out the width of the lobby there. So that's about, I think it's about 22 feet wide that you're seeing the storefront glazing there. And so at each end of that is the walls for the showers on each side. So we've maxed out the lobby width, and then we've gone up 10 feet. So it is quite a large, it's really the
Right.
whole volume of the lobby that we've opened up, and so we could potentially go a little bit higher. The other option would be is we could put some frosted glazing on that same elevation. It would just be into those two shower rooms, just to
Okay.
meet the requirement would be a couple of options, which we can do.
Okay.
I'm not sure that it necessarily benefits. Sometimes it's nice to have some natural light in a shower room, sometimes it's not, so.
It's just that we're requiring others to meet that
Absolutely,
Sure.
ordinance, and so we have to require
Yeah.
that of you too.
Absolutely.
I think it, you know,
Okay.
we can work with the architect to get the exact,
Right,
exact
Right.
area so that we have the correct
Yeah.
calculation as well.
yeah, you're
Certainly,
pretty close.
Yeah, and
So-
our intent was to meet the requirement. We were, when we found out, I think just the other day, that we were a little bit short, it does depend, I think, as he mentioned, on how you calculate it on the, if we're only gonna, I think we're only calculating it on that small portion of the facade, is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that's what I was kind of going off of, was just
Just that
this
tan
portion.
just the
Yeah.
fiber cement portion
And-
there,
and
with
that's-
just the inset part where you actually enter.
Yeah, and if
Okay.
you're considering that, the front facade, then that's what's about 100 square feet
Right,
short.
right.
Okay.
And to me, that does make sense, because the other portions of the facade are not interacted with directly by pedestrians. Because I think this is a pedestrian-led requirement, is that correct? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it
So,
wouldn't hold us
I
up
mean,
at all.
It wouldn't take much to
No,
get
No.
that
we-
into
we're happy to provide
compliance.
that if you would like.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And like I said, you can work directly with staff
Yep.
on
That'd be great.
getting those measurements and
Yeah.
getting that into compliance.
Perfect.
As far as the landscaping, does anyone else, because they have added some landscaping further to the east that could transfer as far as meeting that requirement. Does anyone else have issues with that?
It's fine.
Okay. I think it's great.
We're excited.
Yeah, I think
I
it'll
think it's a
be
fun addition.
Yeah, I do
Get
too.
great access
Yeah,
on State
I do
Street.
too. Yeah, and the building looks nice. As far as the flat roof, the requirement on that is that you have just a minute. Yeah, the cornices and the finish, the parapet and the cornice designs and all those kinds of things which you have. And then your architectural elements, it's broken up with a combination of materials and colors and depth and height. And so
Looks good.
you're meeting those things even with the flat roof because you've added all those other elements. Do you have questions, Rob?
Well, what's the elevation from the street to your first parking stalls? Is there I can't remember on that, is it? It drops down
Quite a bit,
quite a
Rob.
bit, doesn't it?
What you're saying. I was gonna say 20 feet off, obviously, but I don't know that I have the
We do have a little
topograph.
rock, like a rock retaining wall to take up the elevation change.
Yeah. So if you're in a car driving on State Street, what are you looking at?
Oh, as you come by the building as you're going downhill.
Right. You will see the building, but it's down a little bit lower.
You'll see the
yes, than the
roof,
street at that.
Like
at that
top
point.
half maybe at the top?
Yeah, and so, I don't believe you'll see the roof. We do not have, mechanical equipment on the roof. We did at one point, but we've moved it to the lower roof, and so it will be hidden. You will not see that on the roof.
That wouldn't be what you
Yes.
would see from the street.
Right,
Yeah, you would see the membrane, of course, on the top portion of the roof, the white membrane, but we moved that condensing unit off
right.
so that you're not staring at a HVAC unit there.
Okay. Do you have other questions on that?
Sorry, I didn't have that calculation for you, but
Okay.
It's a beautiful building, it's too bad it'll sit down in a hole.
So you can't see the whole thing, huh?
as you're coming up the
Or,
hill, you'll have a really good view of it, which is sort of what that
Depending on your
elevation
direction.
represents, yeah. As you're heading south, you'll see that corner and into the space, but.
I think it's a neat addition to the city. Happy you're doing it.
I just wonder if the building were ever repurposed for another use, there's no
parking. I don't know what else you could use that for.
Yeah.
So, and maybe that's not a relevant point because you're trying to get, we know what you're using it for, but if I were to build that building and invest in that building, and I'm thinking other alternative uses maybe this business model doesn't work out, and I hope it does for you, but we're building a 9,400 square foot building with 15 parking stalls.
Yeah.
Well,
But that's his risk, I guess. If we're okay with that in the city, how do you repurpose this building for anything meaningful
Yeah, and staff addressed
beyond
that.
pickleball?
Yeah, staff addressed that with us actually in our previous conversations that, of course, any change of use would have to come back here.
Correct.
And, of course, parking requirements would change, and they let us know that so that we understood the risk of going forward with the conditional use permit and knowing that if we had to repurpose, then we're gonna have to go back to the doctors and have that parking conversation again that we started. So, assuming that risk and understanding what that may bring in the future.
How do you say the name of the build? I mean, is it Pure Pickle?
Pure Pickle.
Pure, okay.
It's just a little, it's just
No,
a
I
little
like it. I just.
Just makes it so European.
logo. Yeah, right. Yes, that's
So
right.
exotic.
Yeah, it's more logo than,
Lindon, we're very highbrow here, so we appreciate that.
we need the umlaut for sure.
are we ready for a motion on
Yes.
this? Okay.
He wants to amend his hours of operation.
I would just strike that whole line.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to restrict the hours, personally.
I agree with that.
Yes, thank you, yeah.
If somebody wants to use it as a venue, you may be approached for that, like an all-night
Reception?
dance or something like that. What'd you say?
Like a wedding reception.
Yeah, or an
Well,
all-night dance or something like that.
That's
I
a
mean,
joke,
that's
'cause we
not
got number
within the
wedding
conditional
I
use
just
permit.
yeah.
Correct, and it's interesting that the conditional use, well, the use that is permitted currently does mention athletic club, which we sort of believe ourselves to be, but came before this body for a conditional use permit specific to this use. And so I guess my answer to that would be, our answer to whoever requested would need to be, our permitted use is pretty specific to what we're doing here. It's really not anything beyond that.
Someone wanted to rent it for a private party.
Yeah.
Would they have to be a member? I mean, just like the country club, I mean, you can't rent the
Sure.
private rooms unless you're a member, or would you allow other people to rent?
No, I think
it-
you'd have to be a member. You'd have to, I guess you could
Through
have
a
a
member.
private
Yeah.
pickleball party.
Yeah,
If
I
you
mean, I
wanted
think
to.
you'll have people that will want to do that
Yeah,
for someone's birth. I've been to private pickleball parties for a birthday,
yeah.
so I know it's a thing.
It fits within the schedule and they've paid for that,
Yeah.
those hours, and so that's the way that's supposed to be managed.
Well, if there's no additional questions, do we have a motion? And just remember that the second motion is the conditional use permit. It's not a site plan motion, and that should be made first. And then, okay, it's right up here. Okay.
Just strike number 2 when you make the conditional use.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make a motion
Okay.
for conditional use permit. I move to approve the applicant's request for a conditional use permit to use the property located at 195 North State Street for an athletic club business with the following conditions. Number 1, if the parking that is provided becomes insufficient for the use of the property, the applicant will secure an agreement to provide additional off-site, I'm assuming it's off-site?
Yeah.
Parking for subject property. The applicant will comply with all the commercial zoning requirements found in section 17.48 of the Lindon City Code and all other items of the staff report.
Okay, I have a,
No, go ahead. I second the motion.
okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, now do I have a motion for the site plan? Okay,
I move to approve the applicant's request for site plan approval with the following conditions. The applicant will provide 60% fenestration on the primary facade of the building at the pedestrian level. The applicant will continue to work with the city engineer to make all final corrections to the engineering documents. The plans will meet development specifications as found in the Lindon City Development Manual. Final design will meet the commercial design standards for commercial sites and buildings. The
The applicant will comply with all bonding requirements, if applicable, and all items of the staff report.
Okay, I have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. And that'll be fun to watch. When do you plan to start?
As soon as possible.
Really?
We actually, I guess, took a little bit of risk in starting our design documents during this approval process, and should be ready at the end of next week to submit for building permit and to get
Great.
going. And so by the end of summer, we hope to see dirt flying and something happening there. So,
Exciting. Good
yeah,
luck to you.
Good luck
thank
to
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, the next item on our agenda, item number 8. This is a public hearing on this item, and so I do need a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. And this is for a public hearing. This is on a zoning map amendment at 860 West, 200 South. And our applicant is Lindon Self-Storage. Is that you? Okay. And what is your name, sir?
Paul Forster.
Okay. And our presenting staff is Anders Bake, and we'll let you go ahead.
Thank you. So this application was heard by the Planning Commission on May 25th. And at that time, the commission continued the item to get some more information about the CC&Rs and to just kind of get some more questions answered. And so the application is for a zone map amendment to change a portion of this property from R120 from residential to light industrial. The remaining south portion of the property is already light industrial, and the intended use of the property would be for a self-storage condominium units. So the applicant has also made applications for site plan, minor subdivision, and then 2 major subdivision plats. And those applications are also following this application for zone map amendment. The Planning Commission will be making a recommendation to the City Council for this application. So since that May 25th meeting, the applicants have worked with city staff to address those questions that were brought up. They've also made some changes to their CC&R documents, and this report includes some of the pages of those CC&R documents that kind of address the questions that the commission brought up and answer some of those questions. To start, I'll go over some of those questions that I guess were just kind of general questions to the applicant, and I'll let the applicant kind of provide any more detail they want to for each of those. Yeah, I'll just kind of go through each one of them, and we can, discuss anything further as needed. But I guess the first few, the applicant has just provided answers to the questions, and then the majority of the questions, the applicant has referenced pages in the HOA documents that address those questions. So, and feel free to, I guess, let me know how much detail you want to go through each of these questions or not.
Do you want Anders to go through each one of those, or have you already read them?
We've read them.
I've gone
Okay.
through them.
Yeah.
I can just kind of briefly maybe give a summary of
I know that they've read them.
whatever you want me to do.
Go ahead and give a summary, and then
Okay.
if there's specific questions, commissioners have, then we can go ahead with that.
Okay, I guess maybe I'll just point out a few things. So, one, the question was asked about just business activities in the development. The applicant has specifically addressed that in their CC&Rs to say that any business activity would not be permitted. And I'll just go to that page just to get the right wording that they provided on that. Let's see. Okay, so 9.133, no business operation of any kind may be conducted within a unit, and business customers are not allowed to visit a unit. And then 9.13 also answers kind of some other questions that were brought up and suggestions that were made about storing animals or any plants, and then, well, yeah. Let's see. One question that was asked before was about heating, if heating would be available for each unit, and that there will be an option for individual units to have climate control. So it wouldn't be necessarily provided unless that was requested, or and then also there would be hours of office hours for that front office, was another question that was asked. And then another point that was made in the CC&Rs was that any I guess businesses coming to the site to like do any sort of work on things that were in the units, there would be hours of operation for when they could be at the property. And there were specific things about not using the common area for any other type of maintenance or any work that would all have to be done within the private units. So yeah, again, I guess if you have any specific questions with maybe some of these references, I'd be happy to answer any of those questions, and the applicant could probably provide some more detailed information. But most of the other information that we provided on this report was the same that we had before. I think we've kind of addressed, the reason for the zone change and everything that would be included with that. So I'll turn the time over to the commission for any questions.
As far as, I've read through this and studied through it, and I'm really happy to have the information, and I think it sounds very good. It's just whether it can be managed and maintained with that many individual owners. And that's the biggest concern I would have is, and it does say that you can you're going to contract with a professional management to assist the board, because if it's just a group of individuals making up the HOA board, that's sometimes that would be hard for them to enforce all these different regulations.
Oh, there would definitely be a property management
There'd be
handling
a
the
property
dues and
manager
all the payments.
also in addition.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things when I was talking to staff a little bit about one of the concerns would be, the city having to enforce rules and regulations there. And how difficult would that be in this situation? So that would be one of my biggest concerns. I'm really glad for the other information, and there's no businesses that'll be run, and the hours and the office hours, and someone living on site, and the common area, how that'll be maintained. I was just talking with someone today that was just talking about how non-functional their HOA was. And they pay $180 a month for dues, and yet they don't have any idea what that goes for. And so anyway, I guess that's my biggest concern is enforcement of all of the rules and regulations, even though they're in place. So I'll let any of you.
I think the model worries us a little bit. I mean, storage units, if it's managed by one entity, they can control fairly well, but if it's condominiumized, when a person gets a storage unit, they feel that they can kind of do what they want and don't tell me what to do.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying.
And, I've seen them where you end up seeing all kinds of weird businesses inside those storage units, and I think that is our concern, is it not? Or
Well, and just the management of that many different units.
Who's going to be selling these? And how are they going to make sure that all the parameters are explained to the potential buyer?
Well, we plan on selling them.
You're going to do that yourself and walk people through what they can and cannot do and make sure they're clear on all that?
Part of their due diligence is to read the CCNRs
Yeah.
and understand, and then if they go against those CCNRs, there are other consequences.
Yeah. Just making sure you guys thought that through.
There are some additional steps that they could do that they might want to do just to protect themselves, and that at closing, you could have them sign a affidavit that they've read. I mean, being a developer, I've had people say, oh, I never seen those CCNRs.
Yeah.
So I started making them sign them at closing.
Right.
Definitely not a bad idea to put in the closing documents.
Yeah.
Some people could choose to build this out and have heating in there, so how did you guys, you didn't have the answer to that last time, I don't think, but, if you have one owner that wants to heat the unit, how is he or she gonna be charged for that? Is it
Individual
separately
meters,
metered?
yeah.
Are you running gas or just electricity to the units?
Gas and electricity if they choose.
So both. So it'll be, each one will be separately metered with gas and electricity. Okay.
If they choose, again, it's an option.
If they choose, I mean, you're gonna build it out with that? You're gonna stub that to every unit? If they choose to then, put a panel in or put a gas heater in, yeah, okay. So that would mean they would have, is this a sub-meter, or are they contacting Rocky Mountain Power Dominion Energy and establishing their own utility account per unit? That'd probably be a sub-meter, I would think, I don't know. I just thought that was, you guys just didn't know that you guys had thought through that last time we were here, and because I like the idea of being able to have that option if I'm an owner in there. So,
So
I
what
don't know
you're
what the
saying, are
utility
they gonna
provider-
be individually, they're gonna line up their own individual utility
I
account?
don't know if
Or
I don't know if the
is that
utility
gonna
providers will
be-
be willing to do that.
Go ahead.
They would be in each of the individual's name, so Rocky Mountain Power and Dominion Energy, they would be in that owner's name.
So there's gonna be, how many units are you gonna do?
70.
So there's gonna be 70 meters to read on, I mean, I don't know the answer to that.
Give us your name again.
Susan Palmer.
Okay.
They'll be on the end of the units is where they will be.
Yeah, just like with large condominium units.
Yeah,
there's a big bank.
again, I love the idea to be able to have that option. 'Cause I think there are people that wanna heat their RVs all year round, and go down there and spend time all year round, I don't know.
Not have to winterize their boats.
Right.
But they can also choose not to have
Correct.
the utilities.
That's basically how I would see it working. There'd be the ability to have a gas drop on the end of each main building that could turn into a manifold effect. If multiple users in that building want a gas meter, they'd have to all be on the end of a building. Same thing with the power, for the power company to read the meters.
I don't have additional questions. This is a public hearing, so if there are people here from the public that would like to make comments, we would welcome those.
My question
If you wouldn't mind giving us your name.
Of course, I'm Valerie King,
Okay,
and we're one of the properties that kind of touches.
right.
And last year, we had a gentleman come out and just said that, they needed us to sign to switch that property over from residential to light industrial. We were told it didn't affect our property at all, and we signed it. And if it doesn't affect our property in any way with any easements or any changes to what is currently recorded on the county records, I don't know that we have any, issues, but if it was to affect our property in any way against what is recorded currently on the county records, I would not be willing to sign anything, to change, that would affect our property.
Now, I'm interested on what they required you to sign.
I'm not really sure, he just said he needed us to sign something that.
Address that?
Sure.
Okay, so we had an application for a minor subdivision. When they bought their property, they have.
Real quick, Commissioner, I'm just getting texts from people watching it on YouTube and they can't hear.
Okay.
So we may need
So they need to come up and use the microphone.
Yeah, let's have you come up and speak into the microphone.
Okay, so when we met with Mike Florence and we explained the property, the Stouffer's property on the back, which we are doing the zone change on, they owned the property that the Kings have. So we had the Stouffer's owned the whole property. We bought the property from the Stouffer's, and the Kings have the property that is next to the main road out there. 800, is it 800? I don't know what. Okay, so they're on 800. They bought the house. We have the back property that we are doing the storage units on. So that is the property. So a person from our office took over the application for the minor subdivision plat. Now, I don't know if when Scott came over to their office, if he took a plat to show them. I don't know what he took over there. But it was the application for the minor subdivision plat that both we had to sign because we own the back property, and they had to sign so we could make a legal subdivision. So it's a minor subdivision with 2 lots.
Okay, maybe our planning director could help us with a little information on that. Mike, do you?
Yeah. Half the property there.
All right, so as part of this project, it at some point in the last couple of years, someone subdivided the 2 parcels there. So you can see this lot line here, and that's the city, that's the planning commission's responsibility to subdivide. So we said that needed to be corrected through a subdivision
They
plat.
just drew up a new legal description and recorded, is that
They
kind of what
did.
happened?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep. So they created a new a separate lot here. So we're having them correct that through a minor subdivision. And so since there's two property owners, you've got the developers of the storage units on lot 2 and Mr. and Mrs. King on lot 1, they both needed to sign the application to correct that.
So it was just a
error.
correction. It was a
Yeah.
correction they were signing.
So in answer
So
to
it was the application. So all owners need to sign the application, so everybody's aware of what's being submitted to the city. But
They'll also both need to sign the plat.
they will,
The
yes.
vellum for the plat to be recorded.
That is correct. Now, there is, on this, we'll get into this a little bit more when this item comes up for the minor subdivision, but the front part of this property as part of a subdivision would be dedicated to the city for the right-of-way. So you can see the lot currently goes out to the middle of the street, or the parcel goes out to the middle of the street. And so that 33 feet, as typical with any subdivision, would be dedicated to the city. Now, there would be a 10-foot public utility easement along behind that dedication for any future utilities, which is typical.
What about sidewalk, curb and gutter?
We're not requiring that. The city doesn't have any intention of putting that in right now. So for all intents and purposes, the King's Yard will stay how it is.
We'll just clean up the purposes of making it a legal lot.
Yes.
legal minor subdivision.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, it's,
If my understanding is correct, it would take it from.
Mrs. King, we'll have you, no, we'll just have you step up here to the microphone.
Just so people can hear you.
So my question has to do with, it would be taking our lot from a .69 acre lot, and it would reduce it to a .59 acre lot. And so it would cut our property by about 1/7 when we do go to sell it. And that was one of the things that I am concerned about for the property value, going from .69 to .59 acres. And so that's what my question was.
You know, just my advice on that would be, you're paying taxes out to the middle of the road the way that it is right now. Personally, I would see that as a benefit to clean that up and get that taxable situation back where it really is. So, and you still got a conforming lot, it's still over a half acre. I mean, if it were a 3/4 acre lot and it took it to a half acre, I might be more concerned about it, but there's some advantages to what you're doing.
I understand.
Yeah.
Taxes, but.
Yeah.
That's not.
And the fact that the city's not making you put the improvements in is a good thing too. That you're not having to bond for future sidewalk, curb and gutter, or anything like that. And to me, that's legitimate, that you're not asking them to do that, and that it was just one parcel at one time, and it's only being split once. If it were being split twice, then they may have to require bonding and improvements and stuff, so is that correct, Mike?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, there is a little bit of concern where, the applicants have filed an application, but they don't agree on it a little bit. I may need to step out and call Brian just to make sure we're, at some point.
Well, they're
Kings
gonna have to get their
sign-
heads together, because they both gotta sign the plat.
Yeah.
You
My
know,
only
or it won't
concern
be.
is if you're approving a minor subdivision tonight that maybe one party is now not agreeing with, that's something maybe I need to step out and talk
Yeah.
to Brian.
Can you go to the Google Maps? We looked at a minute ago.
Can you show us where
So,
their home is?
yeah, Mr. and Mrs. King, they live in this home here. You can see there is sidewalk in front of their home, but it's not in the right location.
Right. Where
But
does the asphalt go to?
the asphalt goes to about here. I believe this is gravel.
So can you just, now that I can see it visually, explain to me how it would go from .69 to .59?
Yeah, if you look at this, if I click on the parcel size, it's .689 right now, because that width of the
The center of
parcel
the
goes out
street.
to the center line of the street.
Okay. And now it would come back to,
Yeah, now it would come back, this is the center line of the street right here. This 33 feet would be dedicated to the city,
for the street.
for the street, yes.
Okay.
I mean, right,
Yeah.
right now, we use that. We have at some point, we've put the street in, we've,
It's being used and enjoyed by the city already.
yes.
Technically, it really isn't your property. I mean, technically, I guess you could say it is, but like Mike said,
You may
gosh,
not
stop
want.
paying taxes on it.
Able to show them on Google Maps where you showed us where that line would be, because it's like 10 more feet into our front yard, which when we go to sell the house, we bought the house buying a .69 piece of property, and to lose 1/7 of that is not something I'm interested in
But
doing.
Mike,
gravel, then.
Mike, correct me if I'm
It's
wrong.
not all part of it's grass, about 10 more feet, I
And
believe, is what we
your
measured.
33 feet's about there.
But Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't 10 feet of it just the normal public utility easement? It's not being taken away from them?
Well,
It's
the-
just
you've
got an easement, that PUE going over it, over
Well-
10 feet of it.
Yeah, well, you've got the 33 feet that'll be dedicated to the city for right-of-way.
And
then
then in
there's-
back of that is the public utility easement that any lot that goes in today has a 10-foot easement all the way around it, all
There's,
side.
well, a good example, across the street, where there is curb and gutter and sidewalk, over here. Show where that 10-foot easement is on that property.
It'd be behind the trail
Yeah.
here.
So, yeah,
Let's say going up Second.
same thing.
Yeah, on those, it's either 10 or 7.5, I can't
Yeah,
remember.
could-
What I'm saying is it goes into the grass,
Oh, yeah.
just the same as it would for you.
Now, typically, we would require a 7.5-foot easement all the way around the property. This instance, we're not, because
But
there's
it's just
not
the front, right?
because there's no utilities planned for that.
So you kind of need to visualize your neighbor Beck's across the street. In back of those infrastructure improvements, they have, they have that same easement coming into their yard. So it's really kind of normal. And I think you actually have something a little more sellable than what you bought, because people that understand this stuff would be like, gee, I know I really don't own out to the middle of the road. Where do you won't have to address any of that. It'll all be cleaned up. But again, you need to feel good about it.
Yeah, that would be my question, right? If I went to buy this, what am I really buying, right? And, but I understand,
yeah.
it's, if people, we've gone through things who people haven't looked at the master plan and didn't think roads, or, there's a lot of people who buy things or do things
haven't done their due
without doing
diligence.
due diligence, yeah, so.
So is this a question that you do need to check with Brian on,
I mean, I guess
the
if
attorney just,
they're opposed to the minor subdivision now,
yeah, if those questions haven't been addressed and that's something you're opposed to, we may need to check with the city attorney on that.
Some additional stuff, there is a complaint up at the real estate division because the way that Robert Longacre, the real estate agent, managed the property sale was illegal. We have a signed real estate purchase agreement from Craig Stoffers. And in between us getting Craig's signature on our real estate purchase agreement, it was sold to Lindon Storage after he'd already accepted our purchase agreement. And so there's just some weird stuff that is being looked at from the real estate division. We bought the property, knowing that we were gonna get 0.69 acres, and that's what's recorded. And I'm really not inclined at this point to sign anything until I know the outcome of the investigation that the Division of Real Estate is looking
Okay.
at.
Okay, he's checking with the city attorney on that as far as where we go from here. Okay?
So we have been dealing with the city attorney. Our attorney has been dealing with the city attorney. We got an email back from the city attorney today. So if they will not go along with this, then we will just do a subdivision of one for our property, and that's what the attorney said, that we would just do a subdivision of one on our back property and not touch their property when we do the minor subdivision. And then they would just still have their problems with their,
Realtor.
yeah.
So if you just do a subdivision of one, I mean, this is,
No need for anyone else to sign the plat.
Sign it.
okay, so, but I'm trying to figure out how that affects the minor subdivision that we were asked to work on.
Yeah. Well, it'd just be
So-
a little even more minor than it is right now.
And if
It would
it's
just
just a
redraw the
subdivision
plat,
of
could-
one, then
Lot
how
one.
does that make a difference on this?
So if we did a subdivision of one where it says lot 2, that would be lot 1. Right, Matt? If we just did a subdivision of one?
Yeah, I don't even know if you'd have to even do the minor subdivision.
It's not even, it doesn't even apply
We're
anymore.
subdividing the parcel anyway with the other plats.
Yeah, so
I think you
anyway,
would
we got
because that's
an opinion
because of
from the
illegal
attorney today, so
subdivision
when he
that was
comes
done
back, he can tell you
before
what he says.
To make that
Okay, thank you.
a legal
And-
plat.
And he'll be back with us in just a minute. So, and I'm just trying to understand, so that lot 1, you wouldn't do anything with that? You would just do the lot 2 as far as the minor subdivision?
Yeah, the lot 1 we wouldn't touch. If they're not willing to sign anything, that's where we will go.
Okay.
It looks like the two lots to the south of the Kings,
And which lots would those be?
it'd be the Robert Nilsson lot, and he happens to be here.
Okay,
When he sells that property, he's got the same situation there. People are gonna, see the property line go out to the center of the road and go, yeah, right, I can build out in the center of the road? No, I can't. But it looks like in the approval of the plat on the new, what's their name? On the south side of you, Bob. Holland Drake. It looks like they've already taken the easement, the right-of-way out of that lot, where there's see how that line kind of lines up with your line? But again, I can totally
yeah, it's easy
see
for
where
me
Kings
to
are coming from.
visualize it on this, where you actually see the homes. So if we, okay, I'll let Mike Florence, do you want to tell us the opinion from Brian?
Yeah.
From Brian Hawes, our attorney?
Yeah, so, if there's not an agreement on the subdivision, minor subdivision, our suggestion is that, you maybe just consider the zone change for tonight and let them work out the minor subdivision stuff and come back for the zone change and come back for the major subdivision approval and the minor subdivision approval. You could still even do site plan approval contingent upon the council approving the zone change.
Okay.
Can I read to you what Brian said in the email? I pulled it up. Because Brian sent Matt an email earlier today, your attorney. he said, I checked with Mike Florence, our planning director, and a minor subdivision is what we need to correct. Illegal subdivision would have to go back before the planning commission, but it would not need to go up to city council like the major subdivision. So it's gonna be a little of a process if we do change it to just the one lot. So that is what he told us, so.
So as far as tonight, we could approve the zone change
You could recommend approval of the zone
Approval,
change or
to
denial,
the-
whatever.
to the city council. But we would not act on the minor subdivision
Or
or
the
the
major
major
subdivision.
subdivision, and only on the site plan if we wanted to do that.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, are there any other comments from the public? And if not, we're gonna close the public hearing and discuss it with the commission. Okay, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. So we need to discuss how we want to go ahead this evening. As far as, are you wanting to approve the zone change and the site plan, or how do you want to go ahead tonight?
Does it put them further and down the process by approving it tonight, since they have to come back at another date?
They do have to come back with the minor subdivision proposal and also the major subdivision. They'll have to come back for that.
Which is sometimes typical. People will get their zone changes first and then come back for site plan or subdivision approval. They don't, typically we don't do 5 things on
Right,
one time.
right.
And Mike, this is all, this upper part is residential, correct? It's all
It is.
R120.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, about
Uh,
half of this was already.
Was already,
Light industrial.
light industrial.
Uh-huh.
I just don't see how we can ever get homes there. So I guess for me, I don't see any reason to leave it as R120.
Well, that's why the master plan has shown it for years as light industrial.
Yeah.
As far as the master plan, it just has been zoned as each person along there has sold their backs off.
Right. So I guess I see no harm in going forward with that part, because,
With the zone change?
yeah, the zone change. Because I think it accomplishes it gives it more in the master plan, it accomplishes that purpose, and whether this is the project for it or not, I guess is yet to be determined.
Yeah, and what we're doing as far as the zone change is just changing the zoning all to light industrial. That, if we want to go ahead with the site plan, we can, but as far as the zone change itself, that's all that's doing, is putting it to light industrial.
Yeah. So, yeah, my recommendation, along with Mike, I think, is that we make the zone change tonight. But even the site plan, I would recommend continuing that in case there has to be if there's a borderline agreement or whatever that they make or whatever, let them work that out, and then we can do site plan once we're ready to do that's my recommendation to the commission.
I agree with that. What are your feelings?
I felt that way too.
Okay.
Let's get some moving to the next step with the
City council.
Yep.
Consider that as
Mhm.
law.
Okay. Any other discussion, or are we ready for a motion?
Sharon, I don't know if the applicants have any other information they may want to share.
I don't know, we went ahead and closed the public hearing, but you are the applicants, so.
He's not public, he's applicant.
So, if you want to provide any additional
The
information,
only other
that's
thing we
fine.
wanted to mention was the inquiry that she brought up in regards to the Utah real estate. We don't feel that should have any bearing on our project because that's between her and the real estate agent, not us. We just wanted that to be known.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Let me just ask one more clarification of Mike, because as she read the email from Brian, it didn't sound like there can't be, I mean, it sounds like there needs to be a subdivision, a minor subdivision. We can't ignore it, even when she read it. Is that correct?
Just because those parcels, that needs to be corrected. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. And Brian's email was sent out prior to us knowing that the Kings did not agree with the minor subdivision, so.
Right. But even when she read it, I don't think there was an option just not to do a subdivision.
Right, it needs to be done.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted clarification on
It
that.
was subdivided wrong.
Yep.
Okay. It sounds like most of us agree that we, as far as the zone change, but as far as the site plan, the major and minor subdivisions, do you want to continue those?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
until,
might just, may I ask, this will be discussed in future meetings, but I saw your letter where you're requesting waiver of landscape requirement. Why?
So, one thing we kind of talked about in the last one, they're only required to do the 20 feet of landscaping along a public street, and they don't have any public street frontage. And so, whether or not they're required to actually do any landscaping is kind of hard to say. So they don't have any public street frontage. And so, on the site itself, there isn't any additional landscaping required. So the letter maybe wasn't
Yeah.
necessary at all.
And again, this will be discussed in future.
Yeah, but
My feeling is there ought to be a little bit
but
of
maybe
landscaping.
if that what would have been public street frontage needs to be somewhere else, that needs to be discussed.
are you thinking there ought to be some landscaping just to dress up the site, especially if they're owner occupied?
Mhm.
I think one concern, they don't own that property. For the easement, they have the easement, but they don't own it.
Chris Olson owns that property.
Okay. They're just leasing that, or?
And
They just have an easement for it.
Rob, I can see where you're coming from, but in the environment that I think everybody's getting a real picture of the drought situation, they could dress things up by doing some at least xeriscapes, so we're not using any water in an area.
All kinds of landscaping.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be an awfully stark development with nothing.
The enjoyment of the
Let's-
public and the aesthetics of the community, it's,
Well, but it's
It is part of the community.
part of the community, and these people, owners, individual owners, should have some pride in what it looks like. Seems
It's
like-
all hardscape though, because they're all storage in it. Inside the project, there's really no place you can put any landscaping because it's hardscape.
Hardscape, you mean concrete?
No, I mean like roads and everything to it. There's no,
Planter boxes or anything like that. Like, if they want to dress up their front office, they could do that, with some planter box
We'll
or
talk
something.
about that in the future.
Yeah,
The current site plan doesn't have any space for
yeah,
landscaping around the office.
they're not publicly viewed.
Well, as far as the zone change, I think we agree on that. So
Yes.
do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I move to recommend approval of ordinance 2021-7-0 to amend the Lindon City zoning map from residential R120 to light industrial LI and at approximately 860 west, 200 south with parcel number 14-065-0219.
okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous on the zone change. My thing just timed out. Just a second.
You want to do the site approval, site plan?
Okay, and as far as, I mean, we can go ahead to items 9, 10, and 11. This is the Lindon self-storage plan for the minor, major subdivision and the site plan at 860 West, 200 South. And this is the same item, and it sounds like we're in agreement to continue those items. Okay, I would assume we need to do that on each motion. Is that right? Okay, do I have someone that would like to do that?
Mike, could all 3, 9, 10, and 11 be included in the same motion, no?
Yeah, I think you could combine those three,
Yeah, I
Can we
think you
combine
could too.
those? Okay,
but then just
Okay.
make sure they're kind of.
You call it out.
All three.
what each one is? The minor subdivision,
Minor,
the major, and the site
major
plan.
subdivision and site plan approvals.
Okay, Mike, do you want to go ahead with that?
Yeah, I move that we continue the minor site plan approval, the major site plan approval, subdivision.
Is there subdivision?
Subdivisions, not, yeah, both subdivisions, and the move to, again, continue the site plan itself.
Okay, I have a motion to continue.
Second it.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Now, as far as the applicants, where do they go from here then?
So we'll go to city council in July, on the 19th of July for final zone change approval or consideration. And then we'll wait to hear from the applicants and their discussion with the Kings.
Okay. Okay, for when that comes back on our agenda.
Yep.
Okay. And I guess you'll work with city staff on that. Okay. And thank you so much to all of you for being here. Thank you so much.
Wedding centers, right?
This is fast, I could stay, just to complete it if you want.
I don't think there's much
When?
else, just a few comments.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I could let you know also if you want me to.
Why would we choose to?
Okay, I guess we're down to the planning commissioners. Are any of?
We still have this.
So on the
Oh,
back, you
wait,
have the wedding.
what am I doing?
Item 12.
Item number 12,
That's right, I'm sorry. Just a minute.
it's about the wedding.
That's right, I don't know, just a second. Jumping ahead here. Let me get to that. Okay, this is item number 12. This is an ordinance amendment with the Lindon City Standard Land Use Table, so we do need to open a public hearing. Do I have a motion to open a public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous, and our applicant is Lindon City. Our presenting staff is Michael Florence, so we'll let you go ahead.
Thanks, Commissioners. We brought this to you last time on May 11th regarding reception centers. The language we left in here and like to discuss more with your feedback was the 500-foot buffer from residential to reception centers. One change we removed was the, if you recall it, in the commercial general storage zone, we were going to prohibit, right now it allows reception centers as a permitted use. We originally were going to remove that. We felt like let's do that at a different time. When we look at the standard land use table, so we just put that back to a permitted use. So we don't want to make a change on that right now. The other thing I did researching on different parking standards for event centers and reception centers. It's there on the table for you. The kind of the one model I thought was best was West Valley City. Their one space per 50 square feet. So I took a 6,000 square foot building. They would require 120 parking stalls. Our current ordinance would require 68 parking stalls. That kind of seemed to be, a little bit more
in line with
in
what-
line.
So, Mike, just say what is it, Hidden Oak?
Wild Oak.
Wild Oak, yeah, reception center, that there's been a lot of problems with the parking. So in that, I mean, how large?
So that's where I came up with the
six.
6,000 square foot building.
Is
That's the size of their
6,000
building.
square foot? And so instead of
And they
68.
got how many spaces down there, Mike?
They have 68.
68.
And according to this other standard with that example you're using, that would be 150,
120.
120.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
it's twice as much, almost.
We're experiencing that it isn't enough.
That is correct.
Right.
So it was staff's recommendation that the one parking stall per 50 would be implemented.
How would that affect others? Like,
It's not retroactive.
It wouldn't affect.
no, but I'm saying, how would it affect, say,
It would make them non-conforming. It wouldn't, this ordinance does not have any effect on
I know.
Walker Farms or Wadley Farms.
But
There, because
just what I'm asking is, what does Walker Farms have? Do you know?
I think they're around that. I think they have 75 parking stalls.
So they would be inadequate too. right?
They would. They've got the school across the street that
Yes.
helps
And they got
them.
better street parking than.
And they do
down
have a
here
lot
in
of
Golden
street
Lane,
parking as
so you're
well,
not gonna
yeah.
get complaints, but.
But parking has been an issue there too.
I got my first complaint about 2 weeks ago, and Mike Jorgensen jumped right on that, said he would take care of it. So I didn't get any
Wadley's
pushback.
Well, there's been a little bit, but I noticed you put signs up
A
on
lot
the
of
street.
parking down there.
Yeah, Dr. College, he does that. He'll get out there and direct traffic himself as well. We did have some problems. There was a Airbnb across the street that was running as an event center, so they're letting people rent out for weddings and things. So they actually sold that home, and so we haven't had that problem any longer.
Well, and I'll bet you the Wadley Farms ratio is above, even though it may not be what we'd like to get it to, it's probably more than the other two.
Oh, definitely.
Because he's
Yep.
put a lot of parking stalls in.
It's creating more, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like on that west side, they've opened up.
And he's got
lane
fields
or
too. He'll allow people to park in some of the fields there. But kind of wanted to go back to that discussion on the 500 square foot or 500 foot buffer. How does the commission feel about that?
So, Mike, can you help me with this? Because my concern before is I didn't want to just eliminate it. Is there these, what have we got now as possibilities? I mean, is there still?
Yeah, I think Anders put a map together here that kind of shows that, you're where this 500 foot buffer would be. So you're basically limited west of, you're kind of down in Geneva Road, area.
So it eliminates everything on State Street?
It does.
Still.
Well, not everything, sorry. You've got a couple little parcels right here, and you've got some parcels there by Walmart, those retail buildings.
Did we do any analysis, like if that was 300 feet? Does it make any difference?
We didn't. We'd need to bring that back to you, which we're not in a hurry to pass
Right,
this. So if we want to consider that further, that's not a problem.
My only concern is just eliminating something, just.
Yeah.
Are you feeling like you're eliminating people's choice on that, or?
Well,
Because
mean,
it seems
I
like
was
we've
happy to have
certainly
this-
got plenty of reception centers.
we do, but you know, if someone, just like we had today, if someone really wants to take the risk, if the market's saturated, someone's taking the risk to put a pickleball court that can't be repurposed. I mean, that, to me, that takes quite a bit of moxie to do that, because that's a big building with one purpose,
Yeah, and he admitted, we've brought that up to him.
you know? And so I hate to, you know, I mean, if someone builds a nice building that meets our commercial standards on State Street, I guess what do I have against it being a wedding reception center?
I guess the 500 feet was more just the noise
The
complaints.
noise
that I-
ordinance and
that
stuff,
I-
but
As far as residential and that, yeah.
The only issue is that, yeah, they may be willing to take the gamble and everything, but how does it affect those surrounding them?
right. And
Now, the Bella Vista, is it Bella Vista? Is that
Yeah.
the name of, I mean, that one we don't get complaints about. It's on the second story or third story
story.
of that office building. There's no outdoor space for
Right.
it. I mean, there's no outdoor venue space.
And the other one around the block there, we have no complaints on, because they never have any events there.
I don't think they have outdoor space either.
Well, maybe that's what you could add to the ordinance is if
If
there's.
you're within 300 or 500 feet of residential, you have to be contained inside or something. So it's not eliminating the possibility, but maybe mitigating some of the problems.
And yeah, that's a good idea.
So that it's not,
Yeah.
so that would be my suggestion, is maybe look at something where, because I agree, once they get outside and the music starts blaring, that's where we hear the complaints, that's where we
I
hear
get
the
the lighting
problem.
complaints and the noise complaints.
But, you know, if it was a nice indoor reception center, I think there could be some really nice buildings. I look at all the lots still on State Street, ready to be built somewhere, and people aren't pounding the door. I
I
don't
think
know.
that's great. Let me bring it back to you. If you'll continue it, I'll bring it back next month.
And I like the parking. I think it definitely, wherever we put them, we need more parking.
Yeah.
So do you like the one parking for 50 people, or?
Was it 50
50
people or
square
50
feet.
square feet?
50 square feet, I'm sorry.
I think that makes sense, and I like that part of it.
5 times more than an office space.
Yeah. But it's an event center, yeah.
So that's my only comments on it. I don't know if.
Sounds good.
So do we just,
I would just
Continue
continue it. Yep, just make a motion to continue it and I'll work on it and bring it back to you.
okay,
Okay,
want me to make that motion?
sure.
I don't even see a motion in here.
Let me get back up here.
I can-
There we go.
Oh, there it is.
So it would be ordinance 2021-5-0.
We probably need to close the
I
public
move to
hearing.
recommend,
Oh, wait, let's go ahead and close the public
oh,
hearing.
yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, unless you folks have comments? Okay. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, you can go ahead with
My
that
motion
motion.
is I move to recommend continuation of ordinance amendment 2021-5-0.
I second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous on that. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, now I think we're ready to move on to any comments or input from commissioners. I would like to know, and I didn't ask you about this when we were meeting, where if there is any, has there been any response from the decisions on the Norton property? And then if there are any updates on the Lindon Nursery.
I have not heard anything from the developer on the Norton property, so they have been quiet. The Lindon Nursery property, I think there'll be a filing soon for their site plan and subdivision and conditional use permit, so.
Let's see, the only other question I asked you this afternoon, and I didn't listen to see if they made a decision on it, I didn't have time on the water restrictions for Lindon. Have they done that?
Yeah, so I talked to Adam right before this meeting. The council is not doing any water restrictions, like limiting the days you can water. They're going to have a resolution that will strongly encourage residents to is that right, Kathy? Practice.
3 days a week.
Yeah, so encourage
Or
3 days,
less.
yeah, but nothing requiring the,
No restrictions,
yeah.
just to encourage 3 days to water 3 days or less a week.
Okay, so that 3 days, that's more than what the governor is suggesting
The
then.
governor said 2.
But Lyndon's saying it's okay.
No, I don't think so. I think he said 3.
He said 2 for our
Now,
area.
some municipalities have limited it to 2. I don't know.
I think the governor's recommendation was 3, because when he
Was it?
said it, I said, gee,
It's 3 for down some of the southern parts, but for us, he said
2
2.
in southern, 3 in northern.
I think it's switched.
No.
What is it, Mike?
I don't know, I'll let you guys Google it.
I want the southern to water less, because they don't have,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Well, whatever. But Lyndon could do 3 days a week then, okay.
You know, it was interesting, I was reading an article on water usage in the state of Utah. Do you know what percentage of the water consumption in Utah is for residential
8%.
and commercial
8%,
landscaping?
yeah,
Yeah, it's less than 7, actually, I read less than 7,
Yeah.
but
yeah,
I'm sure those numbers vary.
yeah.
So it says Governor Cox said twice a week with 3 times a week in southernUtah.
Oh, you're right. I'm wrong, there you go.
I didn't want to dig
But
in
he
my
also
heels too
said buy
much, 'cause
fireworks
I
and
wasn't
don't
sure.
use them.
Yeah, buy your fireworks and then, but how do you properly dispose of unused fireworks?
Put them in the closet and let them blow up in the closet.
And when I looked at the fireworks restrictions for Lyndon, it looked like those are the same as they've been before.
I believe they are.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, the same maps. It doesn't look like there's any additional restrictions.
No.
Okay,
I hope people will be responsible.
Yeah, me too. I think
okay. Okay,
They seem to get bigger and bigger every year, though, like.
okay. And I don't have anything else. Does anyone
So-
else have?
So Mike, on the city council agenda, there was a presentation from the church, but all I saw was a picture. Anything more than the picture for us to know about
So
when
your
it might be coming to us and?
Yep, next meeting, so your
July
July
13th.
July 13th meeting, so you'll be reviewing site plan approval, minor subdivision approval, and the conditional use permit for the
Okay.
temple.
So don't miss that meeting.
Your main consideration on that, besides all the site plan stuff, is just, the top of to the top of the spire is 208 feet. Your ordinance says 35 feet, then the planning commission can grant an exception to that, so.
And both spires are the same height. I thought one was shorter and one was higher, but they
No,
said both.
same height.
Yeah.
So,
If you go on to the city council's, their meeting, their YouTube meeting from last night, you can hear the whole thing.
Okay, yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, and that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Randy kind of pushed them on timeline, and they were very tight-lipped on that.
yeah.
They said sometime in 2022. And
do what?
Do you anticipate?
it's for, to start.
We're gonna
yeah.
do a larger notification area on
Uh-huh.
that.
Yeah, no Angel Murrow, and I think they knew that 2 baptismal fonts.
Springs was the last one, they said, to get one.
You know, but they've been, I mean, they've provided us everything we've asked for with a traffic study, you know, above and beyond on plans. Now, they said this is a first time building this temple type, and so the reason why it won't start till sometime in 2022 is, you know, all the construction documents, they need time to, it'll take 9 months, I think, to put those together. So.
The only other question, has there been any, I heard rumblings that there might be a desire by council to relook at the residential overlay? Is there any?
I've had a couple council members talk to me about just maybe adding some maps in there that says this is where the residential overlay applies to these 2 properties, or at least to one property now. So, and then if, as projects come in that have to amend the ordinance as well to add their map to the property, but we need to discuss that further.
I just wonder if there was, I'd heard there might be, just wondering if there was anything.
So, Brian just texted me on fireworks. He said the fireworks restrictions are the same. We already have them pretty much set as broadly as state code will allow us. So.
I heard though where Salt Lake City today put restrictions on it because the fire marshal gave her the authority or something to.
Okay.
To do that.
Mendenhall.
Yeah.
And is it Eagle Mountain that also did that?
I don't know.
Yeah. So,
I think we've got at least three fireworks stands that'll be popping up here soon, so.
do you have anything else, Mike, you need to?
No, the
Let us
next
know.
meeting, we'll probably have an amendment for the accessory apartment ordinance as well, because of the changes that were made in state law this last legislative session, so we'll bring that to you as well.
Can you see the Lindon Nursery having their site plan and everything ready for us?
Probably not for the July 13th meeting.
Okay, okay.
So,
Yeah.
And that's our only meeting in July, correct?
Yep, one meeting in July and one meeting in August.
That's good for you. Okay.
And it's the 1st of August, right? The first part of, or?
I think it's the 17th. We moved it, the last meeting, we decided to move it from the 24th to the 17th.
Okay, let me move that then.
That was last week, last time you were here.
Well, if there's nothing else, let's go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I will make that motion. We adjourn.
Okay, and do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and thank you folks for being here with us.